Welcome to the Trust in Beef Ranchers Tour at the Burtrum Cattle Ranch in Tadasek Arena on the campus of Oklahoma State University. We're taking a look at why beef is sustainable food, hearing some of the positive stories ranchers have to tell, and working it all back to the bottom line.
Live from OKLAHOMA, Oklahoma State University via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we'll begin with a conversation with Jimmy Emmons from Trust in Beef. Then it's Mike Burtrum from Burtrum Cattle and Justin Ransom from Tyson Foods. Later, Dustin Wootten from ABS Global. Directly following the news, Greg Henderson from Drovers. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now, welcome the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
Man, are you sure we're doing all that on the one show?
I'm just glad you're in Oklahoma and not in Louisiana fishing for redfish, buddy. This is great.
I took the detour. I almost
see that.
Detour. Yep. We ended up at the right spot. We are here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State. We've got the Trust in Beef Ranchers Tour at Burtrum Cattle Company on the campus of OSU. Having a great time getting to know some people down here and taking a look at, like I said, why beef is sustainable food. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about and how ranchers can tell their stories of what makes the product that they are producing out there sustainable. You know, we talked about this, Davis, when we were down in Texas at another Trust in Beef Ranchers Tour, and it's we're asking people to take a look at how they're doing things, but there's no mandates. There's none of that happening on this. What we are here is to just enforce the idea that beef is sustainable. If it wasn't sustainable, it would have been over a long time ago in this country.
That's right.
Beef is sustainable food, and it has an important place in the sustainable food movement that is out there.
And in all of that, let's not lose sight of the deliciousness of U.S. beef. It's the deliciousness, the juiciness, the texture. It's alluring is what it is.
That's right. I got a feeling we're going to be talking about that with Greg Henderson coming up here in just a couple of minutes after we wrap up the news. Let's get to it.
Sure thing. The National Weather Service weather outlook calls for heavy rain and flooding threats. Gusty winds over South Texas gradually to decrease today as Tropical Storm Alberto makes landfall in Mexico and dissipates. Heavy rain and flash flooding concerns increase across the northern plains to the upper Midwest later Thursday into Friday as scattered thunderstorms could result in some localized flooding issues. That's from the southern high plains to the Four Corners region. A heat wave will persist over the Great Lakes. Hello, South Bend, Ohio Valley, and portions of the Northeast into the weekend as heat intensifies in the western U.S. Yeah, that's what we need is more intense heat, Chip. That would really fill the bill.
Yeah, there's some dangerous heat out there. There's no question about it. They are calling what happened in the Oklahoma Panhandle a 1 in 1,000 year event.
Wow.
With all the rain that they had a year's worth of rain in about 12 hours. Wow. Davis. There is severe damage that is done. We'll keep an eye on what's going on in that area.
Well, in economic news here, ongoing unemployment claims rose by 15,000 to over 1.8 million in the first week of June. That's the highest since January, indicating that finding suitable employment is becoming more difficult for the unemployed. These results suggest a softening U.S. labor market. Got to look at that ongoing unemployment claims number, Chip.
Absolutely. We talked with Vince Belanga about that earlier this week on Tuesday, and this is one of the reports that he pointed at as a strong indicator of what's going to be happening next with interest rates. This report would support his idea that we'll get a rate cut in July, at the end of July.
Well, Chip, in May, U.S. housing starts dropped by 5.5% to an annualized rate of 1.277 million. The lowest since July 2020, falling short of the forecast 1.37 million. The decline reflects the renewed impact of high interest rates on the housing market.
Yeah, another reason that we might see that cut to interest rates at the end of July.
Well, beef packers reportedly actively raised cash cattle bids in the northern market to obtain supplies as cattle numbers are tight. So far, feedlots have passed, suggesting there could be another significant increase in the average cash cattle price this week. Cattle supplies are more plentiful in the southern plains, so prices may not be quite as strong there. The pork cutout value dropped 37 cents yesterday, falling for a third straight day.
Yeah, it's an $8 to $10 spread between the South and North in that cash cattle bid right now.
Yep. Well, over the past year, major banks have increasingly experimented with artificial intelligence. According to Citigroup, AI is expected to displace more jobs in the banking industry than in any other sector, with about 54% of banking jobs having high potential for automation. The United States has halted some new avocado shipments from Michoacan, Mexico, due to an incident there threatening the safety of American ag inspectors. USDA informed the avocado exporting producers and packers of Mexico on June 14 that inspections would pause following reports of 2 inspectors being held and attacked amid a protest. And Chip, I bring this up under the context of, hey man, we're kind of shaking the USMCA just a little bit with the GMO corn stuff. Now we got avocados. Right. I don't know about it.
Tomatoes has been a big issue with Mexico as well.
Indeed. Well, Israel has issued a strong warning to Hezbollah of a potential for all-out war after Hezbollah released a video allegedly taken by drones showing various Israeli military and civilian sites. Lots on the global tensions front there, Chip, But let's get over to Greg.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Davis. Greg Henderson, editorial director, Drovers. How you doing, Greg?
Good morning, Chip. I'm well. Thank you.
Well, talk to me about this cash cattle market and what's going on with beef.
You know, the demand for beef remains very strong. We've said this multiple times, and I guess Davis's description of alluring taste is got something to do with it, right? But what we see the May all fresh retail beef price was at a record $7.69 a pound. And they're even talking about making a run at $8, Chip, for an average retail price. That May price was up 6%. So inflation is still a factor. One of the key things, tomorrow we've got a cattle on feed report expected to show cattle on feed and placements below a year ago. Marketing's down a little bit, maybe 0.25%. The report is expected to confirm a record number of cattle on feed, 120 days or more, Chip. What that's telling is that cattle feeders being rewarded for adding days on feed and slowing the marketing pace and capturing higher prices. Industry is creating more big and heavy cattle with no penalty. The key there is that we're creating more prime cattle too. Yeah. We've mentioned that before. It's over 11% prime now. It hasn't been very many years ago. It was 2-3%. So right. Going forward, Chip, one of the keys is the competition for feeder cattle is going to be intense. Yep. And that decision whether to buy a presumed loser and gamble on futures prices going higher, that's not always a very good bet. We're worried about that next turn of cattle, Chip.
Gotcha. Very good. All right, Greg. Yeah, that rising retail price for beef, let's just keep working those dollars down through the supply chain and get them all the way back to the cow-calf producer and split it up along the way. That's the way to keep this market and this industry sustainable. Good stuff, Greg. Thanks, bud. All right, we've got Jimmy Emmons, Trust in Beef, up next here on AgriTalk.
Chickens have come home to roost. Find out whose fence they're perched on today on AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk and the Trust in Beef Rancher Store at Burtrum Cattle and the campus of Oklahoma State University, Tatasek Arena here at OSU. Okay. Let's figure out exactly what we're doing here. We've got Jimmy Emmons, Senior VP for Climate Smart Ag at Trust in Food, which includes Trust in Beef. Jimmy joins us right now. It's good to talk with you again, Jimmy.
It's great to be back, Chip.
Yeah. First things first, let's talk about that rain that we've had in some spots of Oklahoma. Man, oh man, what an event.
Yes, a 1 in 1,000-year flood. There's reports of 10 to 12 inches in a pretty good size area, 7 to 10 and others in a very short time. Lots of hail, a lot of damaging crops up there. The wheat harvest was just underway, just getting started. I had some friends there that had some 80 bushel wheat that's underwater and flat. A lot of hail on the grain sorghum and cotton and corn in that area. So it'll be very devastating. Them guys, we're really thinking of them.
Yeah, no doubt. Oklahoma always has its fair share of severe weather to deal with, but that was something to behold. A 1 in 1,000 year event.
Especially when you're only used to 16 inches annually.
Right.
And you get all of that almost in one event in a 12-hour period.
Yeah.
Is devastating.
Oh, man. I guess. Jimmy, one of the reasons that you're here is you work with the Farm Journal Climate Smart Ag project that we've got going, and Trust in Food and Trust in Beef is part of that. But talk to me about why we're in Oklahoma. What are some of you're a rancher down here in Oklahoma too. What are some of the challenges that you guys are dealing with? And, you can't count on a 1 in 1,000 year event all the time. But what are some of the challenges you guys are dealing with?
Some of the challenges, we just come out of a big 2 to 3 year drought.
Yeah.
And just started kind of into some recovery. So we had a huge sell-off of the cow herd, the biggest sell-off since the 1950s. And then now we're looking at a new drought starting in the future here, prediction as we change over to La Nina, that we're in that dry area of that. So
it's got to be a dirty word to you guys down here.
It is very dirty, but the other side of that is down in Texas when they have that, it's very wet, and they're having devastating flooding events down there. So weather is always a big challenge for ranchers. We're at a good price in market. I don't think if you look at the price of inputs and vehicles and things that we need to ranch with, I don't know that we're where we should be. But it doesn't matter if you don't have the calves to sell or the cows to sell. If you sold off half of your herd during the drought. And then the rebuilding challenge is, do you start rebuilding on this high market, retaining heifers back or buying bred heifers with a drought possibly coming? Lots of obstacles out there.
Yeah. Like I said at the start of the show, Jimmy, one of the things that we want to talk about is the fact that beef is a sustainable food in this whole sustainable food effort push that is underway. And Burtrum Cattle does a great job representing that, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons. I've known Clay and Mike Burtrum for years, and I know, and I talked about this morning at the opening, that their cattle work for them. They don't work for their cattle, and they've done a really, really good job on the ranch, managing and looking at they care for the land. They have a lot of conservation practices ongoing on the ranch, and that helps them be sustainable. They've been here for quite some time, and I will say they'll be here for a long time.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Mike in the next segment, but
what a treat.
Yeah. But it's not just what they're doing with the ground; it's what they're doing with the cattle that makes the operation sustainable, isn't it?
You bet. So just like our Climate Smart grant that I run, they're utilizing vents, a Merck product, to move cattle around with a virtual fence.
Yeah.
So they could look on their phone. Mike's here in the studio with us right now. He could look on his phone and see where the cattle are at.
Yeah.
Are they in? Or where are they grazing? So great technology, another conservation practice that we're trying out with our CSC grant as well. So they're on top of technology, and you'll hear more about that as they get into their presentation after lunch.
Right. Very good. How many of you got signed up at this event?
We had 115.
Nice.
Yes.
You got to be happy with that.
Yes, very much. And another thing, we had 52 signed up for BQA, Beef Quality Assurance certification this afternoon. So,
very good. We'll talk a little bit more about that this afternoon too. The people who's here, who makes up that 115?
So we had 76 ranchers signed up. We had another 25 4 or 5 like that was in the other category.
Okay.
That might be an educator. That might be a rancher that runs 20 cows, that has an 8 to 5 job.
Yep.
That doesn't consider themselves a rancher.
Yep.
It could be some consumers that we've invited in. So part of Trust and Beef's initiative is to connect all them dots. So we have several partners here. We have several consumers. We're going to have Lopez El Dorado beef here at lunch today to talk about processing and beef that they promote and move to McDonald's. So a very diverse crowd.
Excellent. What is it that you hope they take home with them? And specifically from the tour that they're on right now out at the ranch?
More technology, more understanding of how critical data is, and managing and knowing where you're at in the operation. A lot of people think they're making money on cattle, but do they really know? Burtrums know. They know every day, every hour where they're at. And I think some of that, the technology and the fencing, the understanding of soils, NRCS is out there showing what good range management does and rainfall infiltration. So if you have one of these big 1,000-year floods and you get 10 inches, how much of that do you really
hold on to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So even if you get 2 inches, did you really get 2 inches?
Right.
So a lot of great things happening out there on the ranch right now. Great qualified people.
Talk to me about some of the things that are happening out there. When you look at what Burtrum Cattle has done, what do you think is where the spotlight should be?
I think it's in adapting technology, building, just being willing to open themselves up and try something new. Mike and them was showing me yesterday that every one of their tracts of land, their employees have on an app. They know by touching that app how many cattle is supposed to be there, what's there, what needs to be done. So they're tracking all that. So there's no questions when they get there. If there's supposed to be 50 cows, they can look at that and say, well, we're short.
Yeah.
So technology, advancing that and keeping it in a format of records that we can tell our story. Okay.
And what about a conservation practice that's out there at the ranch that you think should be featured?
Well, today they're featuring that virtual fencing from Vince.
Okay.
That's a true new conservation practice of land management.
Okay.
Knowing how to move them cattle around. Because a lot of times in the past, I promoted moving cattle frequently. Yep. It's a good practice. Most people say, well, I don't have time to go put up poly wire, be out there to move them daily or every 3 days or a week. It's more to do. It's actually not. It's a perception. But this, you don't have to do that. You can take your iPad, your computer, draw you a boundary around where you need to go, and it's done. And then, like I said, you also see where they're overgrazing, where they're underutilizing, so that you truly manage every acre instead of cattle are like you and I, Chip. When we get to the buffet line, we kind of know what we like, and we just stay there and we fill our plate up, And if we taste something that's not as good, we don't eat as much of it.
Right.
And if we give cattle that opportunity, they're going to do the same thing.
Excellent. How's the effort? We only got about 30 seconds, but I got to ask you, how's the effort on the Climate Smart Ag project at Farm Journal going?
Oh, it's going great. We've got started. We're enrolling people every day. We're really excited about where we're going to go with that.
Yeah. Where can people go to learn more about
it? Go to trustandfood.com/grow.
Okay.
And if you want to learn
trustandfood.com/grow.
And if you want to know more about Trust and Beef, trustandbeef.com.
Trustandbeef.com. Good stuff, Jimmy. Thank you. Have a great day, buddy.
You too, Chip.
All right. That is Jimmy Emmons, Senior VP for Climate Smart Ag at Trust and Food, and of course, Trust in Beef. When we come back, we're going to talk with Mike Burtrum from Burtrum Cattle. And we're also going to have a conversation with Dustin Ransom. He's one of the Trust and Beef partners, Tyson Foods, coming up next here on AgriTalk. Hi again, everyone. I'm AgriTalk host Chip Flory here with another installment of the Soy Checkoff Check-in. Joining me is Steve Reinhard, chair of the United Soybean Board. Steve, the last time that we talked, you were rained out. How are things going over in Ohio now?
Gone pretty good. I think a lot of people are getting done with first planting, and we've had actually quite a few replants go out for soybeans, more so than we've had in the last several years. We've had some tremendously heavy rains in different places and crops just not coming out real good, but we have corn and soybeans in all stages of development. And for the most part, though, things aren't looking too bad, probably about 20 to 30 days, maybe a little bit later than what we would normally like to see.
Right. Seems like you guys over in the far eastern belt can make up for some of that lost time with just a little bit of a stretch at the end of the season. Is that right?
Yeah, usually our first frost won't be till October 30th. And here lately, we've been getting them into November. So the key really is having that September rain to finish off those crops.
Right. Okay, this month on the Soy Checkoff Check-in, we are talking about biofuels, Steve. And with the increase in global focus on sustainable energies, the advancements in biodiesel production, sometimes you wonder, is this a be careful what you ask for kind of scenario? Can U.S. soybean farmers meet the rising demand for biodiesel?
Well, I think that we definitely have seen our yields increase over the past several years. And I think that we're definitely looking at different ways that we can be more productive in what we do with biodiesel. And we'll see more guys planting double crop soybeans behind their wheat than what we've had in the past. So I think that we're really working towards striving to fill that demand. And we've seen here the last, several months where we've actually seen market prices decline a little bit because I think we probably have a little bit too many soybeans around. So, we continue to strive to hit that. And I think that we're going to be in good shape as we go forward.
Yeah. And that's the soybean oil side of the equation, Steve. There's also the meal that comes from the crush. And that's why it's so important to work with the livestock side of the industry as well, right? Sure.
When we crush a soybean, we get roughly 20% oil and 80% meal. And that meal is comprised of that high, protein, a good amino acid concentration and carbohydrates. And that's available for feed and fuel. And those are two things that will continue to help the animal agriculture world. And U.S. soybean farmers' number one customer is animal agriculture, specifically chickens. Chickens, turkeys, and pigs eat 97% of that soybean meal. That's just a great way that we can help produce that biofuel and at the same time help our animal industry as well.
Yeah, very cool. But as we look at the development of the biodiesel, the goal in place is 6 billion gallons of demand by 2030. Can that happen?
I think that can happen. We look at biodiesel production as dependent on the farmers of today and tomorrow, and our feedstock producers have an important role to play in, lessening the challenges for highly polluted communities and build those cleaner markets for using versatile, soybean oil. So I think that is a very achievable goal. And I think it's one that we continue to strive for through the soybean checkoff and working with our different partners to continue to create and meet that demand.
Yeah. And the infrastructure is something that the entire industry is working to get into place. And it's not just the ag industry. There's refinery money that is coming into the development and the crush facilities. It's kind of an all hands on deck, isn't it?
Yeah, we've seen refiners come in and want to be a part of the process. And I know here in Ohio, we had Cargill and Sydney that did a big expansion. We just had the Ag Innovation Campus up in Minnesota open, and they're looking at crushing soybeans. And when they do that, they'll provide the meal, of course, for the animal agriculture sector there, but then also help the researchers unlock new uses for soybean oil as well. And that crush plant continues to want to be a partner in that Minnesota area. And that's just another example of how we continue to look at different options to provide meal and oil to our markets. And when we have more oil because of the biofuel market, we have more livestock feed available. And that just creates another win-win for our farmers.
Yeah, fantastic. Steve, where can listeners go to learn more about how the checkoff is involved in this market development?
Sure. So if they want to go to United Soybean That's where they can go and find out more about what their checkoff dollars are doing and how we're working specifically in this case in the oil and meal markets as we continue to crush more soybeans.
Fantastic. Steve, thanks. Be safe out there this spring. Good luck with the crop. We'll talk with you again soon.
Yep. Thanks, Chip.
You bet. Steve Reinhard, USB Chair, checking in on the Soy Checkoff Check-in. I'm AgriTalk host Chip Flory. Now let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. We've cleared the schedule for you. Give us a call at 855-482-5524 and join the conversation.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Thank you so much for joining us. We are at the Trust in Beef Ranchers Tour at Burtrum Cattle, and we're also on the campus of Oklahoma State University, Tatasek Arena here at OSU. Joining us right now, Mike Burtrum from Burtrum Cattle. Mike, it's good to talk with you. How are you?
Oh, great, Chip. Honored to be here with you and your crew. You're our go-to person for information for not only us and our clients regularly. AgriTalk's it.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that, man. Tell me about Farm Data Services.
Well, we're a management accounting firm. We started 43 years ago.
Yeah.
My goal is to hit it to 50 on my side and turn it over. We've got a crew of 14. We work in 5 states, and we're a management accounting firm, but we encompass everything from crop insurance, government programs, analysis, work in transition, succession planning, data collection, helping our clients to drill down on a per acre, a return of pounds of beef per acre, maybe a little bit unique into what most tax accounts would provide them.
Gotcha. So this grew out of what you were doing at the ranch, right?
Yes. But obviously, before Clay came back, when he was just a boy 43 years ago, we saw, hey, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
At that time, we had 50 sows fair to finish. We had a cow herd. We were raising wheat. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. And of course, farm crisis started then in the 80s. A lot don't remember. And we kept drilling down to figure out what can we do.
Nice. Yeah. So Burtrum Cattle, it's a family business.
Yes.
It's not always, family businesses are not always the easiest businesses to manage, are they?
Oh, no, not at all. There's a lot of different personalities, different talents available, and we've got to work towards those.
So how do you got to work towards those, and you've got to kind of leverage the individual talents on that operation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The blessing was Clay. My rule is when you graduate out of college, you don't go to work for the family business. You leave first.
Okay.
Clay went out, worked for Continental Grain, ran a feed at the feed yards there, got tremendous experience that there's no way he would have got home here.
Yeah.
He comes back, goes to work for the business. And that what he brought back, his talents and abilities, particularly in the beef cattle business, is invaluable to us in Burtrum Cattle and our clients. I'm more over in the accounting side, the numbers side, the finance side, but those two, as long as we stay in our realm, and that's important. I tell my clients that too, as we work through transition and succession planning, stay where your strengths are.
Yeah.
And use that to complement the whole business.
Yeah. Sounds to me like that would be the piece of advice that you would offer from your ranch out to other farmers and ranchers.
Absolutely. We would. Like I said, Clay's got such an eye for cattle, an eye for the conservation aspects of it. And he's the driver behind this new technology.
Yeah.
Okay. So he brings it to me. I take the data then for Burtrum Cattle. We drill down and what's the results? Not everything is successful. We've had plenty of failures.
Yeah.
But from those failures, they're not really failures. We step up from there and say, okay, why did it work? Why didn't it work? And how can it work in the future?
Awesome. So you're hosting the ranch tour today. Why is it important to Burtrum Cattle to be involved in this effort?
Well, we've got to remember, obviously, we've got to get our message out to the consumer. That's our ultimate end product goes to him. Okay, by educating other ranchers, because a lot of times we as ranchers just want to say, I want to take care of things at my ranch. I don't want anything, but we can't do that anymore. The consumer wants to know, where's their product coming from? How's it being raised? Is it sustainable? How's it affecting the climate that's out there? They want to know that. So by hosting, I believe it was a week ago, Clay had Ag in the Classroom out there, 2 great big buses out there, unloaded them. They spent a day out there talking. Those things are important to get our message out. And then he's really good at using, and we use social media, all the different platforms to keep the message out. We've got a lot of family out in Arizona, for example. Well, they're on Facebook with us just to see what's going on. Well, we can put this information out there. Trust in Beef. They see what's going on. They understand a little bit more because they're not on a ranch.
That's very cool. It's very cool, everything that you guys are doing, and you're telling the story that you've got to tell, and it's a story that consumers react to. So that's a real positive feature here. What are you hoping that the ranchers that are on the tour are going to take home with them?
I hope they see that technology can be used. For example, the virtual fence, and it's not without some problems, but it's headed that way. I'm sitting at the office, Clay's out of town. I can pull it up. Are there cattle that are out? I'm going to know. Better thing yet, my banker wants to come do a cattle inspection. Pull it up on the computer. You want to count them? They're right there. We can go out and visualize them too. Fantastic technology that's there. So to let these ranchers know there's technology coming, it can make your life easier and help us get our message out.
That's really cool, Mike. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. Mike Burtrum, Burtrum Cattle. Joining us now, Justin Ransom. He is the Senior Director for Sustainable Food Strategy at Tyson Foods. Justin, welcome to AgriTalk.
Well, it's good to be here today.
Yeah, glad that you're here. Now, the Climate Smart Beef, you're working toward the goal of sourcing more of the Climate Smart Beef. Tell us about those goals and where you're finding success.
Well, it's exciting to be here today with some of the most progressive producers in the area, trying to learn more about how they can evolve their operations to be more sustainable. And we're on a journey, and how do we figure out, how do we tell the beef story?
Yeah.
And we need data.
Yeah.
And so, it's one thing to have a message that people can understand, and trust me, we're sustainable doesn't work. And so how do we incent farmers to deploy practices, whether it's genetics or pasture management, improved pasture management technologies like vents that they're looking at today? How do we encourage them to do that and then compensate them to bring a more sustainable product to market? So as you think about goals, as you mentioned, our customers have set a lot of big goals, and we have set goals in terms of how do we reduce emissions in our business and our value chain. And so the work that we're doing now, if 95% of our emissions are coming from our value chain, how do we work with farmers to make them more resilient and really drive meaningful impacts that ultimately protects our business and theirs too?
Okay. All right. Now, with that in mind, what conservation, animal welfare efforts or practices are you looking for down at the production level when you're sourcing this Climate Smart Beef?
It's interesting. We traditionally have had relationships at the back of our facilities, right? So we're partnering with feedlots. This opportunity now that we've been engaged in for the last 3 or 4 years is really, how do we reach farther back in the value chain with our strategic feeders, identify producers that are using sustainable practices. So we started with Where Food Comes From and their beef care program. It started out actually as an animal welfare platform, as an alternative to GAP. And we asked the Nature Conservancy to work with Where Food Comes From and putting some real meaningful teeth and metrics into their environmental standard. And so that's really kind of where it started. We made a commitment to impact 5 million acres of grazing lands in 2020. We made that commitment just this last year. We know through the beef care program, they're touching more than 8 or 9 million acres of improved pasture management. And so now how do we begin to take data that tells a more powerful story about how we can quantify and estimate the reductions of emissions that are happening in our value chain, and then ultimately tie it to products that consumers ultimately will be a part of.
Okay. Justin, you also mentioned, how are we going to compensate producers of that beef? What kind of marketing opportunities might there be out there?
For starters, the beef care program, I mean, they're seeing premiums for cattle that are beef care certified. And ultimately, we would like to get to a point where we're talking about incenting producers on specific practices. Like if you have a robust pasture management program, we want to compensate you for that. And so it's really, how do you tie it together? And so partnering with Where Food Comes From, IMI Global, on-farm verification of practices, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing like the incentive of more in the paycheck to get some of these changes in place that you're looking for, and some more aggressive conservation efforts. So how else are you supporting that? I mean, your involvement in Trust in Beef is supporting that effort, right?
For sure. You know, so in terms of the climate smart commodities work that's happening, I mean, we are passionate about how do we continue to support programs like that. Trust in Beef is one avenue in it. And how do we give producers the opportunities to begin to engage in these climate smart commodities, a market that's developing? And how do we, I mean, everybody asks you about carbon and what's the value of carbon, and we don't know yet. But the reality is we recognize that this market is developing, and we want our supply chain to be robust and to have data that supports the transition.
I feel like, boy, we've only got about 20 seconds left here, but I feel like the beef industry is doing a nice job of gathering the stories in advance of that next step in the consumer demands for information.
That's right. And that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Good stuff, Justin. Thank you so much. That is Justin Ransom, Senior Director of Sustainable Food Strategy at Tyson Foods. Okay, mentioned it at the start of the show, and we're going to dig deeper into this. We've got Dustin Wootten from ABS Global. We're talking beef genetics and how it all fits into the sustainability story. We're doing that next here on AgriTalk.
In the morning, you're coffeeed up and you're thinking. In the afternoon, you've calmed down, but you're still thinking. We're here all day. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to the campus of Oklahoma State University. This is AgriTalk, and we are at the Trust in Beef Ranchers Tour that is happening at Burtrum Cattle down here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And joining us right now, Dustin Wootten, ABS Global. ABS is a Trust in Beef partner, and Dustin joins us right now. Thanks for making some time for us, Dustin.
Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.
You bet. It's the very start of the show. I mentioned that genetics are part of the sustainability story here. Dustin, I cannot believe the animals that we've got in the feedlot at this time, compared to even, 10 years ago for sure, but 7 years ago. It's just a superior animal out there in the feedlot now, isn't it?
That's exactly right. You look at the cattle in the feed yard, and then as well as the amount of pounds of, say, CAB product we're putting out for the consumers. We're actually raising more beef on less animals today, and that's a testament to genetics.
Get here. What were the driving forces that got us to where we're at?
I would say a lot of the driving forces is the grid premiums, right? Those were the driver for a quality product. We look back maybe, in the 90s, where the demand for beef wasn't where we wanted it to be. We saw some grid premiums start to come on board and really drove that, hey, we need to make better cattle. Our consumers are demanding it.
Yeah.
And that has really driven it. Another thing I would say is, unfortunately, we've had some droughts the past 10 years. Here in Oklahoma and the Midwest have been really bad. One good thing about a drought is it tends to call out the bad animals.
Yeah.
And we're left with the really good ones.
Yeah.
Because the ones that make you money are the ones you're going to keep a hold of.
Well, and when you bring that herd back, which I'd like to think that at least guys are thinking about that. But when you bring the herd back, you bring it back with the absolute best genetics you can.
That's 100% correct. Yep. I think you mentioned bring the herd back, and I think we're just kind of at the infancy of bringing the herd back.
I feel it too.
I think this is going to be a lot different than it was a little over 10 years ago when we went through the same thing of a herd rebuild. I don't believe this one will be quite as steep in a herd rebuild as the last one.
Everybody's always saying, who's going to do it? Because that generation of cattlemen, are they just going to take this as an opportunity to step out of the market completely? When there's financial incentive, somebody always steps up to do it, don't they?
That's exactly right. Yep. And we're starting to see a few of them, the guys that are real business driven. Yeah. Can see the writing on the wall that this deal is going to get even better than it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when guys are building that herd, they're going to be thinking about the sustainability story as they do this, and they're going to be looking for some efficient genetics in their herd, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where ABS pairs perfectly with Trust in Beef and Trust in Food. At ABS, our saying is to make matings with intent. And when we think about sustainability, you need to make matings with intent. We can make maternal and terminal cattle with the same animals. We just split your herd. We have a maternally focused where we want our replacements to come from. And if that cow maybe isn't the best cow, doesn't produce the best calf, then let's breed her to make a terminal animal that's going to go to the feed yard and then on the consumer's plate.
Right. And then just keep building it up. And boy, it's an impressive, the herd that we've got now is impressive. And I'm saying that just based on the animals that I see in the feed yard. But it's going to get better.
It's going to get better.
And the consumer has played a major role in this, especially the last few years, because they're just demanding better and better beef in the meat case.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You look at the consumer will pay for a quality product.
Darn right.
That price is a limiting factor to some degree, but when they go to a steakhouse, they're not going to a steakhouse to have an average eating experience.
No.
Right. They want that prime steak on their plate.
That's exactly right. It's really impressive. So how do you use the relationship with Trust in Beef to tell the story of genetics? I mean, it's a story that we've got to get out there so that people understand exactly how and why it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about the sustainability part and the partnership with Trust in Food and Trust in Beef, when you think about things like greenhouse gases, how can we make those cattle more efficient when they're on feed? So if we can knock off a few days on feed, that's less air they're taking up, right?
Yep.
So can we make them convert a little better? And with making matings with intent to make a better terminal animal, we can improve those things. Less days on feed, they convert a little better. Maybe add a little to their quality grade.
Yep.
Increase that number of primes, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing about it, the more efficient the cattle in the yard, the more efficient the cattleman, more efficient the cattle feeder.
100%. With the word sustainability, the first thing that comes to mind for me on the feed yard level, or especially at the rancher level, is profitability.
Yeah.
It's hard to be sustainable if you're not profitable.
Yep. Yep. What did Jimmy say when we were down in Texas? Conservation is just a conversation without compensation.
That's right. That's 100% right.
And it's 100%. I mean, obviously, Jimmy, that stuck with me when you said it. And it is 100% accurate. There's got to be the financial reward that comes along. Well, in this case, I think we're talking about financial incentive up front, show that there is the potential for that reward later. And it's got to be there. If it's not there, guys aren't going to do it.
Yep, that's 100% right. Kind of dangle that carrot in front of them and say, hey, we'll incentivize you. And then down the road, we'll have some premiums that come along for the better quality cattle.
Yeah. Holy smokes, man. That went by in a hurry. What is it that you hope the guys that are on the tour, what do you want them to take home with them?
I hope that they maybe put a little more thought in their matings and how they can their operation a little more profitable.
And they can do that. There's no question about it. The progress has already been phenomenal. And the progress over the next 10 years is going to be right there. Dustin, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you very much.
You bet. That's Dustin Wootten, ABS Global. ABS is a partner of Trust in Beef. Hey, thank you so much for listening today. We're going to be right back here at the Trust in Beef Sustainable Ranchers Tour in Stillwater this afternoon. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back in the bunker for the free-for-all right here on AgriTalk.
That's right.